I'm Shelagh Rogers. Je m'appelle Shelagh Rogers. Et c'est un grand plaisir d'être ici ce soir et de faire votre connaissance. I've been asked to say a few words in French, and that's where it will stop for me. Because the last time I was asked to do that, I was speaking at a mental health conference, and I was trying to describe how the day I was diagnosed with depression was a day that gave me a before and after in my life. And what I said was, quand je regarde ma derrière, je vois qu'elle est divisée en deux parties. So what I actually, you got it, right? I don't have to explain that. I was not paying attention in French class the day that I learned that the past is not the derrière. Excuse me. And what I would like to talk to you about this evening is paying attention, and paying attention by listening. I desire a country that really listens to everyone, accepts different opinions and worldviews, listens past the poll results, and gets down with the people and really listens to what is going on the ground. I dedicate this talk to two really great listeners, Peter Zosky and Stuart McLean, who were like Canada's stethoscope. By their example, we can build a better country by really listening. I've been a broadcaster at CBC Radio for close to 400 years now, and I would say I have been a real listener for only 5. When it comes to exemplary listeners, we have some stellar role models in Canada. Paramount among them are Dr. Marie Wilson, Grand Chief Wilton Littlechild, and Senator Murray St. Clair, the 3 commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. At national and community events, you could see them listening. You could see them taking the testimony of survivors into their beings. I had the privilege of being an honorary witness, and it was about 6 years ago that Dr. Wilson wrote to me and said, by bearing witness to the thought-provoking lived experiences of residential school survivors, you will help validate them by remembering and sharing them with your wider world of influence. My induction ceremony into the circle of witnesses was in Inuvik, and my induction was followed by that of a Holocaust survivor, followed by a man who had seen his village in Bosnia destroyed, followed by a man who had survived torture in Guatemala. I looked at them, I looked around at the survivors, and I looked at myself and had this very big feeling of one of these things is not like the other. During a break, I ran into a woman whom I'd met through the Peter Zosky literacy initiatives in the north, and we were standing in the hallway, and she introduced me to a friend of hers who had attended residential school, and memories for her were flooding back. I started peppering her with questions. How did you make it through each day? When did you get to go home? What contact did you have with your family? And this woman turned to me and said, Shelagh Rogers, you have to quit being a journalist and just shut up and listen. And I thought, wow, what a thing to say on our first date. But she was right. By not shutting up, I was invalidating her experience. I was trying to take over, directing what she was going to say with my questions. Force of habit, but not all habits are good. It was a real innovation of the TRC to have survivor statements open to the public to witness and to listen to. Something so powerful happens to us when we listen with our whole being. Everything else falls away when a speaker is giving voice to the unimaginable suffering that he or she or they went through as children. The listener honors and validates them by being fully present for them. We owe the survivors for the next 150 years We need to acknowledge them. We owe them affirmation. We owe them ongoing and informed listening, so that when we hear statements like, well, at least they, and I hate they got an education, we have to ask, at what cost? Whose idea of education? Or when we hear statements like, the government and the churches meant well, we have to ask, what was it they meant well to do? To be that informed listener, we have to listen to our true and learn our true history. And we also have to unlearn the history that we learned in school and undo many assumptions. Our ignorance of colonialism, our relationship to it, and benefits from it, our ignorance affects what we hear in each other's words. We have to commit to confronting our living history of oppression and suppression. 2017 seems like a good time to start, and it begins with listening. A few months ago at the University of Victoria, one of our elders, Carla Point, herself a survivor, told first-year law students that you should practice the art of listening. Listen with your 2 ears and your heart. Forget your brain. When you spell heart, the middle 3 letters are ear. 4/5 of heart is here. And I also love this and think it's no coincidence. Listen and silent are comprised of the same letters. Whoever came up with those words knew about shut up and listen. To create a listening culture, we have to embrace silence, though we live in a society that is made deeply uncomfortable by it. On the radio, in fact, we call silence dead air. But so often in survivor testimony, silence expressed what words could not. The writer Alistair MacLeod knew how to navigate silence. Years ago, I had a breakdown from depression, but he would phone me up to shoot the breeze, even though I had very little breeze to shoot. Even when I couldn't speak, he hummed me, and he was listening to my silence. His hums were a huge validation. Alistair lived his own line from his novel, No Great Mischief. All of us are better when we're loved. Listening is an act of love. It stops the process of othering because listening acknowledges the experience and the very existence of another human being and another worldview. It builds what Stuart and Peter had in abundance, and that is ganglia, or connective tissue. Peter was my mentor, and I had to fill in for him, and the very first time was terrifying. It was like Dorothy filling in for Oz. I called him up the night before and said, dude, what do I do? And he said, just listen. And I said, yeah, I know that, but then what? And he said, no, that's it. Just listen. And that is it. Just listen. Shut up and listen. Hum, a friend who is struggling. Listen with your 2 ears and your heart. I hope that by the time I turn 150, I'm a much better listener. When we really listen, and all voices are heard in this beautiful, wounded country, we will really heal. Before the candles of the Canada 150 cake are all blown out, let's make this the year of really listening. Masi Cho.